guys, welcome into the Cowboys Report. Let's get started. 9 news and rumors to get through. We're going to start off with, let's say a bunch of news. Benson Mayowa, he's been cut. He gone. Tom, it saves the Cowboys a little over $2 million. They're back to 4 on the number.
And it's not a surprise. This is one that we've said was going to happen all along because it was an obvious cut. I got the dude that had 1 sack last year. You're not going to bring him back when you can save 2.75 is the cap space number. I will mention this, though, just to be technically correct. Because the Cowboys have more than 51 players signed to the roster based on the way the cap works in the offseason, yet they have to count a player at the vet minimum or at the league minimum, which is $48K. So it's only 2.27, but when Dallas adds somebody else, that little over $500,000 goes away. So in reality, it's going to be 2.75 at the end of the year. And just in terms of the way it counts right now, it's not quite that much.
Math is hard, but Benson Mayowa, he is no longer a Cowboy. The Cowboys have cut him. I am Brett Scott. Alongside me is Tom Downey at WhatGoingDowney on Twitter. He's got all those Cowboys news and rumors on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sunday. You know, I just join him on Thursdays because it's fun.
Yeah, it is fun.
Sure.
I like having Brett on.
Why not? Let's keep going. Another cut. Joe Vellano, he was a practice player. He gone too.
Yeah, this is like whatever. This is not a big deal, and it's we don't have a photo of him because he was on practice squad all year. This is the photo we used of him with the Falcons when he had a couple of snaps and a cup of coffee on the practice squad for the Dallas Cowboys. Not a big deal. Saves a little bit of money. He wasn't going to make the roster. This was when the Cowboys just had all kinds of guys on the practice squad and roster because the defensive tackle spot was so decimated with injuries.
You know, I bet everybody in the comments would agree with me. I'd take a cup of coffee for $480,000 a year.
Me too.
Yeah.
I would too.
All right, next one up here on our news and rumors list of the day, Jerry. He lost about 2 million friends the other day to Roger Goodell, and by friends,
that's a lot of friends.
I mean dollar bills.
Oh, you mean money.
Ouch.
Yeah. So I am actually a little bit surprised that Jerry just flat out lost the battle. Because my mindset was like, okay, how can you make Jones pay for Zeke's the legal fees from the Zeke suspension and threatening to sue when he actually didn't sue when you didn't make guys like Robert Kraft do it?
Yep.
I think in reality what's going on here is this was the other NFL owners' way of saying, Jerry, get in line. Like, you got to stop being so vocal. You got to stop being so, not disrespectful, but so out there and not willing to fall in line and toe the company line.
Yeah, causing drama to the shield,
yes,
if you will. The protection of the shield, there's some chips in the armor, per se, with, ratings being down. You can talk about the kneeling thing all you want. Jerry versus Roger with Zeke and this and that. The chunks in the shield have been very apparent in the 2017 season, and as we move into the 2018 season, can the NFL get beyond that? And I think this is part of it, and that's why Roger Goodell took the fight, and the other owners took the fight to Jerry Jones here. So, of course, I'm seeing a lot of likes going across my screen right now. Tom, we've got Rumor Meter. We've shown only 4 stars so far because they've all been news. But let's take a look at what the other stars mean because I'm going to get to a few of those. 0 stars, if you see it, it's fake news. The amount of fights OBJ won against the net. 1 star, small shred of truth. 2 stars, people are talking, 50-50, right in that rumor category. 3 stars, it's pretty likely. And then 4 stars, you've seen the news already. Dez caught it, it's a fact. And it is a fact now, the NFL has said it's a fact. All right, number 4 on our list is Richard Sherman joining the Cowboys. Well, we're going to ask it the other way around, and this one's going to be 3 stars. Richard Sherman, pretty likely not to join the Cowboys, right, Tom?
I get it, it's Richard Sherman. Oh, Chris Richard is DC and former DB's coach is now the DB's coach and passing game coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys. That makes sense, and Sherman was linked last year when there were the trade rumors. Look, Todd Archer said it very well on Twitter. I don't think it makes a lot of sense for Dallas. You're definitely not going to trade for him at $11 million because you cannot take on that base salary at all.
Don't have the money for it.
And you're moving Byron Jones to cornerback, thank God. Absolutely pleased about that. You've got Chidobe Awuzie at outside corner. You got Jordan Lewis at corner as well. You've got Anthony Brown, who I actually like as a number 4 corner. Where you're going to fit a 30-year-old cornerback who's going to turn 30 in March, coming off not 1, but 2 Achilles surgeries. Now, 1 was minor, but 1 was a full-on tear. I like Richard Sherman. He's a nice player. If the Cowboys had all the cap space and need a corner, it makes a lot more sense. But unfortunately, I don't see why Sherman and the Cowboys makes it as a fit right now. It's worth discussing and mentioning, but only in the sense that it's not going to happen.
Yeah, it doesn't look likely. All right, Biggs, and Steven both saying, hey, how about Earl Thomas? Let's go get him.
Everyone's talking about Earl Thomas.
You know, a lot of happening out of Seattle yesterday. A lot of news off of that defense with the Michael Bennett trade. Sherman news as well. Well, Earl Thomas, he may still be on the trade block. We're going to talk about it next after a word from our sponsors, The Guild. It's pretty likely as well that Earl Thomas is still on the trade block, but can that mean Dallas Cowboys trade block?
Well, two different things here. So remember, there was the report earlier this week from Indianapolis, which we discussed on the show about how Earl Thomas was not going to be dealt by the Seahawks. They have him in their plans for 2018. And then Mike Silver, also of NFL.com, comes out and says, well, look, Seattle's still listening to offers. They just have a high asking price for Earl Thomas. And maybe on the surface level you think, oh, those are incompatible with each other. Both those reports can't be true. I actually don't think that's the case. I think what's going on here, and Seattle's been very vocal about this in the past, they'll listen to offers for almost anyone. Like they listened to offers for Richard Sherman, they did not end up dealing him last year. I think the same is true with Earl Thomas this season. They plan on keeping him. He is in their plans and they want to sign him to a contract extension. But they will still listen to offers. They just have a very high asking price. And I think for Seattle, I think that means a first-round pick or at least a high second-round pick. And that's where I think it becomes an issue for the Cowboys is, do you want to give up a second-round pick and then pay a guy a lot of money for Earl Thomas? I would. If Seattle's want to take anything but my first-round pick, I'd do that deal.
Second round in Orlando Scandrick, done?
Done. Orlando Scandrick is a freebie because we'll talk about him.
I think if you did some sort of deal, we got comments going here. Edward says go get Thomas. Pond said we need some experienced defensive backs. Like if you go get Thomas and his salary, even if it costs you a second round pick in Orlando Scandrick, you still have to make a move somewhere else because of the Cowboys cap situation, right?
Yeah, and we're going to talk more about that in terms of players who could be cut later on in the show. The good news is they can free up almost all of Thomas's cap hit by just redoing Travis Frederick's deal and restructuring it. So they can afford Earl Thomas, but it might end up being a situation where you get Earl Thomas and then all of a sudden next year you can't afford a guy like David Irving.
Right.
Is one potentiality. But with that said, I love Earl Thomas. The Cowboys haven't had that true dynamic safety in quite some time. I would love to get him. I think the issue is I don't know if Seattle's going to be willing to move him for what the Cowboys can afford to do.
You know, it's possible. They seem to be making a lot of changes to that defense.
True.
Maybe they're just going to blow it all up and start over.
If they do, I think at that point it becomes more likely that they shop Earl Thomas for maybe like a second round pick.
All right, Chris is saying go get Derwin James in the draft.
cool.
Tom, would Dallas have to move up to do that?
I do think so. And you know what, Brett? It might be less likely to move up if they had lost to the Eagles in Week 17 like they were supposed to do. If
Tom
they had
is
tanked
pro-tanking
properly.
if you're
I
not
am
aware.
Always pro-tanking. All right.
All right, pretty likely here that Dallas would have to move up to get Derwin James.
For starters, I don't think he gets out of the top 15, which would have had you trade up anyway, even if you had lost to the Eagles. And Derwin's like, I don't think I'm going to last. I love to play for the Cowboys, but they got to go trade up for me. And I think that does make some sense. And we'll get to a reaction from here in a little bit. Would you rather have Derwin James or Earl Thomas, Brett? Because you can't have both. And let's just say a potential trade, you move up and you give up a second or third round pick for Derwin James, but you're also giving up your first round pick.
But you're swapping.
Cheaper. Yeah, but he's cheaper. But with Earl Thomas, you get to keep your first round pick, but you give up a second and you got to pay more. Which would you rather have?
I'm going to throw the like button here.
Okay.
I tend to like the youth movement that the Cowboys have done. You've seen a lot of success with their offensive line in their draft successes the last 5 years, and that's what they did in the secondary last year. Why not add one more piece of it and just go full-on youth in that secondary and have them grow up together and be in great spots over the next 3 to 4 years?
Xavier Woods, Derwin James at safety. I like that tandem. On the flip side, if you missed out on both those guys, Brett, I guess you can go get Kenny Vaccaro. He's going to actually be a free agent. He's not going back to the Saints. That's the I guess laughing face because you guys make fun of me.
Tom, no, I love your draft and free agent crushes. So between Vita Vea and Vaccaro,
done.
Done.
A+ defense. That's all we need.
Tom's happy. So all right, let's talk more draft here. How about Michael Gallup? Sounds like the Cowboys did meet with more people than we talked about on Tuesday.
And we kind of figured that was going to be the case. This one came out yesterday, and they did meet with Michael Gallup at the NFL Combine. This is your boy, Brett. Whether or not you want to admit him as not, this is the guy that you like because he made some nice plays at Colorado State.
Yep.
I like him a lot as well. He's not the height, weight, speed guy. Maybe someone like EQ or EQ St. Brown or DJ Shark is, but he's a little bit more well-rounded. I think there is a chance he's on the board for Dallas in round 3. And I think in that scenario, you can get a linebacker, a guard, a defensive tackle, a safety in some order in the first 2 rounds, and still get a guy that I think will be better than Terrence Williams by the time the season is over.
Yeah,
and I think the Cowboys have visited already with 7 receivers from the combine alone. They're going to go receiver at some point in the draft, and probably very early.
Yeah, I asked you this after Tuesday's show. What do you make of all of the reports about the Cowboys meeting with these offensive guys as opposed to the defensive guys at the combine?
A, we do hear more about the receivers because it's a sexier position. But B, we know that they're going to go get a receiver, and I think you'll see him take one at least by the end of day 2. And I think you can see him double dip as well. There are a lot of solid number 2 receivers in this year's draft.
All right, let's talk about another position that you could see the Cowboys go draft a guy, and that's linebacker. Anthony Hitchens, is he's headed to the Colts, Tom?
Yeah, this one again seems very likely, and this is from Tony Pauline, who had one of the more recent reports on, at least the most recent one, says that everyone he talked to the combine thinks Hitchens is going to go to the Colts.
Yeah.
And that's what we've said really for weeks now because it just makes so much sense. Yes, Dallas wants to re-sign Hitchens, but he can get more money and more guaranteed playing time to play for his linebackers coach in Indianapolis. It's like, I just think it's going to go down, and it's unfortunate because it's very much a Barry Church type situation, but I will be stunned if Hitchens is not with the Colts next year.
All right, let's
surprised.
stick on the defensive side here for our last news and rumor here. Do the Cowboys want to sign Trumaine Johnson, the Rams?
This also coming from Tony Pauline of DraftAnalyst.com, and this one I actually don't really buy. And we had heard some rumblings about Johnson and the Cowboys from last year and from previous years when he was franchise tagged. He's going to hit the open market. I think he goes to the Bay Area. I just don't think this one's going to end up going down. It's only 1 star here for me because where are you going to fit him and how are you going to afford him? And that was what Pauline said, that he didn't think there's enough cap space for the Dallas Cowboys. But I think what this is in reality is this is Dallas, and maybe see him hearing that Dallas would like to sign Trumaine Johnson, but not we're trying to sign Trumaine Johnson because he's talented and I think he'd be a good fit for Dallas. But with Awuzie, Lewis, and Byron Jones and Anthony Brown, you don't have the availability in terms of resources that you should put to cornerback and the playing time in general to go out and get somebody like Trumaine Johnson.
All right, those were our news and rumors for Thursday. Lots of stuff happening after the combine, of course. You know what, Tom? Cowboys cut a couple of guys yesterday. Let's take a look at some other guys that the Cowboys could cut. We know that cap space is a little bit precarious, so let's take a look. And we start with a guy that you guys like to talk about and ask about. It's Terrence Williams. If we were putting the stars on it, Tom, this would be fake news. This
is 0 stars because it doesn't make any sense to cut Terrence Williams. I know he's not the best on-field player, and I very much agree with you guys. And you see, $4.57 million cap hit, let's cut him. Well, if you do that, it's an extra $2 million on the cap hit for this year.
$2 million. I think you said it sounded like billion.
Oh, $2 million. Extra $2 million, just to be clear.
No B's on that one.
No B's, just an M. And if you make him a post-June 1st cut, it's no money saved. So at that point, you keep him on your roster because he's still better than Noah Brown, for example. So at that point, maybe you try and trade him. No one's going to take on the contract, so you keep him for a year, and then next year, he's gone.
All right, let's talk about guys that are real potential cap cuts. Who could be next for Dallas to cut? And let's go to James Hanna.
He gone. James Hanna is not coming back. 4 receptions, 88 yards, and a TD. Yeah.
Give me Rico.
Yeah, you're just going to cut James Hanna there. $2.75 million, just like Benson Mayowa. And this has been an issue, I think, in recent years for the Dallas Cowboys in general, as a quick tangent here, and we'll get that reaction up for what you guys want to do with James Hanna. Here's the issue for me with the Cowboys. Their pro scouting and their evaluation of other players' free agents on their own, not always the best. Shouldn't have signed Mayowa, shouldn't have signed Hanna, shouldn't have signed Nolan Carroll, shouldn't have signed Demontre Moore. A lot of missed chances when you only have a couple guys you can afford in terms of that lower end money. Obviously you wanted Patrick Robinson, you didn't get him. You end up keeping James Hanna, and you end up costing yourself money on the cap when you should have said, okay, we're just going to allow him to leave.
I think if we're talking stars, this next guy's the 4-star on the potential cap cuts.
Both
that's going to be Orlando Scandrick.
He's not going to come back. Now, the Cowboys will try and trade Scandrick, a $5.3 million cap hit. Not really all that bad in the end for the Cowboys and Scandrick.
Right.
And for a new team, but he's coming off the back surgery. That's a big red flag of a guy that has had injury problems in the past. Now he had another back injury. They're not going to keep Scandrick. He's going to be cut. Everything we've heard, and really from Scandrick himself that's hinting, he knows he's not going to be back. With Byron moving to cornerback, Scandrick in reality, I think, becomes your number 4 or number 5 corner. You're not going to pay $5.3 million for that. He'll, I think, be a post-June 1st cut, saves $3 million, has some cap hit next year, but it gives you more money in the end. He will not be back with the Cowboys.
The Cowboys will look to trade him, but it seems probably unlikely to happen because it's so known that the Cowboys are going to move on from him.
And that's the issue. Like, teams are going to go, we can get him for like $2 million on free agency, and he can be our nickel corner. I don't think they want to pay that much with the concerns about the back injury as well.
So far, it looks like the guys are in the comment section looking to cut.
Yep.
All of these guys, and even Terrence Williams, even though that would be a unprofitable move. All right. Let's take a look at Cole Beasley. So Bees did not have as good a year in 2017 as he did 2016. Cap hit is kind of sizable, and you've got Switzer waiting in the wings. What should the Cowboys do here? I think this one's a little bit more on the controversial side.
I do. I think the next three are very much in that area.
Yeah.
And Cole did not have as good a year this year. And I think that was part of some scheme issues, part of just Cole not being as good, teams figuring out how to stop Beasley a little bit more.
A little bit of regression for Dak Prescott.
Exactly. You drafted Ryan Switzer. If you want to get him on the field, with the way the Cowboys use their personnel, that's going to mean less snaps for a guy like Cole Beasley. And there are ways to get both on the field, but the Cowboys don't ever do that because they aren't creative enough on offense from what we've seen in the past. $3.25 million is a pretty significant number for Cole, and maybe you can get someone to trade for him. Maybe you can get a late round pick as well. So I don't think the Cowboys are committed to cutting Cole yet, but I think it's a guy that they'll discuss more and more as we get closer to the start of the new league season.
I think the reactions speak for themselves. The fans want to see Beasley on the field and still in that Cowboys uniform.
Quote is comment was, "That's too much sauce." I agree.
Like that.
I think I would lean toward keep or trade if you get something good, but I don't think you're going to cut him outright.
All right, next up on the list, who could be next? How about Tyrone Crawford?
If you had asked me this at the beginning of this year, I would have said he's gone. He's not going to come back. But he had a solid year at that defensive end spot. He's a 3 technique by trade, but Dallas is having him play that right defensive end spot. Has a $9.1 million cap hit. Only 1.8 can be saved, but it's actually 6 if you make him post June 1st.
Mm-hmm.
That's the route Dallas would go. My guess is you won't see the Cowboys cut Crawford until after the draft, if that's the route they want to go. If they end up spending a higher pick than they plan on another defensive end, then you could see him say, okay, Tyrone, thanks for everything. We're going to let you go.
I just don't see him drafting another defensive end this year.
I could see him spending a mid or late round pick because they have extras and because they just cut guys like Mayowa, and we'll see if Charles Topper ever becomes a player. But I think Crawford, at least for now, I'm leaning toward he stays on the roster. But I think next year in particular, the cap hit and the savings drastically change, and there's going to be a lot more money to be saved. I think one more year at most for Crawford.
All right, I haven't seen it in the comments yet. I feel like you guys are sleeping on us today. You haven't asked about Dez Bryant, so let's talk about him. Could he be next as a potential cap cut, Tom?
I don't think it's going to happen. And again, we've mentioned this before, and I think now everyone's kind of catching up with us.
Yep.
Steven's playing bad cop, Jerry's playing good cop, and Jason Garrett is playing cheerleader cop. I think in the end, you're going to see Dez Bryant stay with the Cowboys.
Wait,
maybe
is cheerleader cop kind of like a Halloween costume or something?
Sure, I just meant that he claps a lot, but okay, that works too. Look, I think in the end with Dez, you're going to see him find a way to work out some type of pay cut. Maybe it's only a little bit. I don't think you're going to see anyone trade for Dez Bryant, even though there was an ESPN report saying maybe, or not report, but speculation that here's who could trade for Dez Bryant. I don't see it happening. I think they'll keep Dez Bryant, maybe at less money. I know that Jerry wants to keep Dez Bryant. And frankly, in the end, Brett, if you cut Dez Bryant, you get substantially worse at wide receiver.
Yep.
And that's why it doesn't make any sense. Maybe they'll make a run at a guy like Sammy Watkins or Allen Robinson and then cut him. But I don't think you're going to get either of those guys. And at that point, you're better off keeping Dez Bryant because do you really want Terrence Williams as your number 1 wide receiver? Absolutely not.
Bobby's with me in the comments. He says keep him 1 more year, and I'm with you there, Bobby.
Yep.
You can't cut Dez in 2018
I agree.
because you're still set up to win, and if you cut Dez, that means you're going to start it over. Here are the guys that we just talked about: Terrence Williams, James Hanna, Orlando Scandrick, Cole Beasley, Tyrone Crawford, and Dez Bryant as potential cap cut casualties this offseason for the Dallas Cowboys. All right, that's been today's Cowboys Report. For Tom Downey, I am Brett Scott. We'll see you guys again on Sunday.